You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Are you ready to learn the 3 secrets to launching a successful podcast? Hi, I'm Bill, a recent client of the Podcast Mogul. If you've been thinking about starting a podcast but aren't sure where to begin, he's got you covered. He is hosting a free webinar where he will share the 3 secrets that can help you launch, grow, and monetize your podcast without any fancy equipment or technical headaches. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot now and let him help get your podcast off the ground.
Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome back to another amazing episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better. And today, I'm very excited because I have someone I've been trying to get on this podcast for at least 2 years. But because he's so busy running multiple businesses, well, mainly just 2 businesses, and running a successful podcast, he has finally found some free time in his schedule to come join us. So I am very happy to have the host of Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing. I'm saying it right? Why Your Podcast Isn't Growing, a podcast for coaches, entrepreneurs to better their growth. And of course, he has the best name for his group. It's Get More Listeners. That's what we podcasters want. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome the sulky tunes of Mr. Anthony. Anthony, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad we can finally do this, man, because it feels like I feel like a nut, like a squirrel trying to chase a nut. Like I'm kind of getting this stuff organized. So I'm glad we have to do this. I'm really excited to kind of get into it and see what we'll talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited because you come from a different aspect of podcasting than I do. So it's going to be very interesting getting your concepts, getting your ideas, and how you got into this game. And so let's just start off. What made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Dude, Phil, I wanted to get rich and famous. Isn't that what we all want to do?
I don't like the
want to make that right down. All jokes aside, to be honest with you, I think from a very young age, I've really loved the idea of having freedom. I never really envisioned myself in a corporate setting or a normal job or working for someone else. It never really came into my mind. It was very odd, but in the best way possible. So I can't really say where that feeling came from. I just know I've always had it since I was younger. But I guess as I started to grow up, I just kind of felt natural to me, kind of felt innate that I'll work for myself, that I would have a lot of freedom, that I would have a lot of abundance. And I would look at people around me who were working normal 9-to-5s or having normal jobs, and everyone seemed pretty miserable, dude. Like, no one really seemed happy. It's not like this thing like, oh, wait till you grow up and reality hits. I'm like, dude, that sounds depressing. Like, I remember telling my teacher I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur, doing really well. And she goes, yeah, that dream will die soon. And I was like, what? No, what?
Wow.
Yeah. But thankfully, because I was at a point where since I was young, I never had idea. It never came into my mind that I would even consider getting like a normal 9-to-5 job, right? So because I've built that identity for so long that when things like that would happen, like with a teacher, I just knew that they were in their own bubble. I was like, you're the weird one. No, I'm gonna be fine. So why, and I guess for me now, why am I an entrepreneur? Why do I do this? Honestly, to me, I love the idea of having more freedom, of providing value to a marketplace, of building something and working on a project all day and all night and getting paid very well to do it. So you would then, take care of your family, friends, and live life, have a bit of fun, but live life in your own terms. So to me, that's really why I believe I want to become an entrepreneur. I couldn't explain back then, but thankfully I've got the words and articulation and understanding to explain it right now.
You went through school. You got the words. You used it school so you could learn how to express yourself. Was obviously from a young age, you said you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and you probably did hit those 9 to 5, maybe not a full-time 9 to 5, but part-time jobs, because we all have to do that as entrepreneurs at a certain point before the business just takes off. Did you have any other entrepreneurial attempts before you jumped into the get more listeners for podcasters?
I did, man. I did. I actually did. It was so multiple, so a few. So when I was in high school, I had a friend called James Archdale, great guy, solid guy. We had a graphics class, and of course, we would just theorize and have different ideas of what clothing brand would bring up. So that was like GI. But of course, that didn't go anywhere. We spoke about it for the lesson, thought about making an Instagram, thought about making the logo and all this and that. But we only got as far as the logo, which is pretty mediocre. And then from there, I guess even before that, I would do like, paper rounds, just wanted to make a bit of money. But then from there, went to, university. At university, me and my business partner, my current business partner, Tig, we kind of almost got into kind of a pyramid scheme, like this Canyon Water kind of pyramid scheme that we weren't aware of. Was like how to make money online by $10,000 by recruiting this person, and then when they get other people to recruit, then you get paid for. So we nearly got into that. Thankfully, his dad talked us out of it, so we then kind of left that behind. But we then found something called Profit Accumulator. So this is something called match betting. Now, I'm not an associate, or I do not condone or promote gambling necessarily at all, in fact. But we found a way to essentially game the system and guarantee profits through match betting, through betting sites, through gambling. And it was a way where essentially what would happen is a broker would give you an offer. Hey, if you bet £10, we'll give you, or if you bet $10, we'll give you $100 as a bonus. It's just a way to get more people to sign up, right? So there's a way that we could trick the system. We could essentially do what you call kind of like laying a bet. So you make a bet of, hey, I believe that this horse is going to win this race, and that's my £10. And then on an alternative site, you would bet against the odd. So you'd bet against the specific horse to win a race. So you'd have these two, like you bet a tenner here. You bet against these two odds. They cancel out. If the horse wins, this one wins. If the horse loses, this one wins. So they cancel each other out. You don't make any money, but you lose any money. But what you do is you now qualify for the $100 bonus.
On both sides.
All right. So by nature of doing this, we essentially got the bonus, and then we would repeat the process again. But this time we would essentially bet, let's say, for one horse to win and another horse to win. But because the second bet wasn't with our own money, we would end up winning real cash and could withdraw the money. So of course we went through all of the betting sites we could possibly find with these offers. Got our quick cash, which felt incredible, right? As you know, I think I was making like $200, $300 per day at some points during this, which was incredible for me as a little, a little hustler in a uni, me and my friends. And it was 4 of us. So once we rinsed our accounts, we then decided, hey, let's get some clients. College students, they're all broke. They want money. So we started Cash for Students. Cash for Students was a platform that would help other students make money through this process. And of course, it was kind of our way of sticking it to the gambling sites and, giving the big one. But multiple different things, I guess, to put it simply. And here we are now on podcasts. I'm podcasting grow. Nothing to do with gambling, just legitimate, helping people grow their podcasts.
Now you're gambling on another type of thing, which is more safe, growing podcasts. How did you get into the podcasting game?
So it was COVID. So when lockdown first initially happened, I was at a point where I was feeling pretty down, to be honest with you, mate. I was feeling kind of like I didn't really know what I wanted to do with myself, because I'd essentially created an identity where I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to work for myself, but I didn't really know what I was going to do. Like I was clueless. Like I was that guy in high school saying, "Oh, I'm going to make it. Watch big things happening." And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I felt super lost. And when lockdown happened, I was in my second year at university, already contemplating dropping out because I was like, what am I doing here? I'm just at university. Like, I know I'm not going to use my degree. I know I'm not going to get normal 9 to 5. I literally wrote down on a piece of paper my first day in college, that I wanted a foundation of a business set up by the time I left. That was my ultimate plan and goal, right? So when lockdown happened, it kind of presented an opportunity where I had a lot more space. And I decided to just pray and say, hey, look, God, dude, I just want some help. I want some direction. I don't care what it is. I just need some direction. And then later that night, I guess later after praying, it was like 1 a.m., super dark. I was in my room, my laptop in the middle of the room, bright screen on, and I watched this law of attraction video that was like, hey, you can make it. You can do whatever you want to attract it. And then at the end of it, there was an ad. Would you like to make some money online? And I was like, yeah. Would you like to work very little hours and make all this money? Yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And would you like to do this without putting any capital up front? I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'd like to do that. And it was essentially this 2-hour long webinar that was I eventually watched. And it was all about publishing books on Amazon, on KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, and making an income by publishing a book, a self-published book. And that was my introduction into the online world properly. Different ventures, but it was my introduction to the online world properly. So I rang in my business partner at the time, Ty. We invested $1,000 into this program, the best investment I've ever made in my life. And from there, within this program, because they're helping us publish books, we had to pick what niche, what industry, what topic we'd cover. And we decided podcasting. And that was a mixture of, honestly, Phil, I wish I could say scientific this, and we thought about all this and that, and it was super detailed. Dude, it was dumb luck, and we just saw it was dumb luck, and we saw some trends. We were like, oh my God, okay, that number looks good. There's a lot of demand. Okay, cool. There's not that many competition. Okay, let's go for it. We're both passionate about the industry, but we didn't know, I had no idea it would be what it is now. Like, I could not have seen it become what it is now. So we started publishing, and then from the publishing, one book became a complete and utter fail. The second became a bestseller in the podcasting space, and that's how we got a foot in the front door.
So from that book, from the initial $1,000 you put, you got into the KDP, figured your niche to be podcasting because you saw the trends going, and COVID was the perfect time because it was the what I like to call the industrial revolution of podcasting, if you will.
That's it.
It just exploded thanks to Joe Rogan and the fact that everybody couldn't talk anymore. When you got that second book, it became a bestseller. Did you already have clients, or were you using that book to bring clients into your business?
See, now that sounds like a smart guy right there, Phil. Dude, we were not thinking that far ahead. We just thought books provide value, make them really, really good, do lots of research, make some money. That's what we thought, to be completely honest with you, man. But eventually what actually happened was clients and people started reaching out, so the first book was called Podcasting Made Simple, helping people launch their podcast. But then the problem is, when you launch a podcast, how do you grow the thing? How the hell do you grow a podcast? So once people started reading the book, our community members, readers would reach out and say, hey, by the way, guys, do you guys need coaching? Do you how does this work? Do you one-on-one? And I was like, yeah. So started up by just, working one-on-one with some people who reached out to us from the books within our communities, giving away free consulting because we just felt bad, charging, and then slowly, eventually, we built our confidence, tested a bunch of different things out, and then we got our first initial paying client who did actually come from the book.
I like that. And it's smart. It is the story of entrepreneurs. Put out a product, and then people buy, and then they're like, hey, you help me go bigger? And then you're like, I can't charge you. I'm a fraud, I don't believe the limiting beliefs that come out, the what's that word? I forgot it. Whatever. When you don't think you're the proper person, it's not limiting.
Imposter syndrome.
There we go. The imposter syndrome's all there. You think as a podcaster I would be able to speak, but apparently I can't. You get the imposter syndrome when you first got that paying client, because I know that for most online entrepreneurs, that's the holy shit, I actually can do this. Because I know you had the book, you're like, okay, we can do this, we can do books. But when you get to the first client coming in saying, hey, I want to pay you, here's money, help me get bigger. What was that feeling like for both you and your business partner? Because that's huge for us entrepreneurs. When you get that first paying client, it's just over the moon.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. It was my first ever proper sales call. my first ever proper sales call, and I closed hard, and I felt like bad man. I felt so good. I was like, yes, come on,
You're a road man.
yeah. I was so amped up. I was like, wow, this actually just happened. It was for $1,800. I think he paid in full as well, which is $1,800. PayPal was, by the way, FYI, they take crazy commission. What the hell was I doing, right? Stupid commissions, like extortionate commissions. Regardless, I remember just being so happy, to be honest with you. I was just thrilled. I was just so pleased that we had got to a point where someone was actually open to giving us money to work with us, because at that point, like, dude, we weren't worth shit. Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but we weren't worth really anything, you know. We weren't worth shit. That's the honest truth about it. And I think for us, it was the first sign of life that this could be a thing, you know, that we could make this work properly. The book's done really well, that's fine. But then working one-on-one with clients, it's a lot more impactful, it's a lot more intimate. And I still remember to this day, I was just buzzing. I was just vibrating through the entire day, felt really amped up. And then I realized, oh crap, I've got this money in my bank. Now I've got to get this guy actual results. Because before we did get people results, but it was for free.
Mm-hmm.
That was this string attached. I was like, I'll help you for free. I'll learn our process. And I was like, oh my God, panicking, oh my God. But that pressure helped me just make things happen, you know, because when you're working one-on-one for clients, like, they don't put as much effort in. They really still want it, but they're not incentivized. They've got no
skin in the game.
They've got no skin in the game. And neither do I, really. If they don't win, who cares, right?
Yeah.
When someone pays you now, you're obligated to help them. You're obligated to fulfill what they paid you for, you know.
And with that first client, when you got paid, you got the results. The next stage, like, you got your first client, you got him his results or their results. What was the next thing on your mind? Because like you said, you're like, oh crap, I have to get this person results. Now you're going from euphoric to the dark depths, because now you're like, there's a lot of pressure on you. Like you said, freebie, there's no pressure. They do it, they don't, it's their own fault. Now this person's paying you to get them the results. Now it's on you. Did you have a moment of just reflection going, maybe I can't do this? Like self-doubt drop in?
You know, no, I didn't, to be honest with you. You know, like, I want to be solely transparent, man. Like, I didn't really, because I've never really been. I've had moments of self-doubt in my entrepreneurial career for sure, but it was just more so like, how am I going to do this? But it wasn't like, am I going to be able to do this? It was like, dude, like, how are we going to do this? Like, well, so the questions were different. The questions were built off of pressure of knowing I needed to deliver. And it was more so, how are you going to do this? Rather than, dude, am I going to be able to do this? That wasn't the question I was asking. And I'm very grateful about that, because I know a lot of people do suffer with those moments where it's like, oh, how am like, but for me, it's like more like, how am I going to do this? It was the anxiety and the pressure of like, dude, how am I going to figure this out? It was never, and thankfully, by the grace of God, and I'm so thankful about this, by the grace of God, it was never, will I be able to figure this out?
Yeah, because you have you and your business partner, you're able to bounce ideas back to help grow it. When the results came in for this client, obviously the client's happy because he's like, podcast is going up, seeing download numbers going up, which is, as a podcaster, always good, right? We always like seeing our numbers going up.
We love seeing numbers go up.
Very vanity matrix, but still feels good to see those numbers go up.
I don't know. It feels pretty real to me. It feels pretty real. Those numbers, that graph, oh my God. When I wake up in the morning, I look at that graph, I feel so good. I'm like, hell yeah.
Just start your day.
Graph going up, baby.
When he got his results and you were like, okay, we can actually do this for money.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel now an added pressure to do more sales calls to get those clients in the doors? Or were you like, okay, we have this, what's the next step for us?
Yeah, it's a good question. To be honest with you, around the time, because I was still in college, I was still kind of like figuring out what we wanted to do. There was a lot of space between our first client and our second client. Just honestly, it was a lot of space between the first client and the second client. It was more so like, we knew we wanted to do it and do more of it. It was just timing, like what makes sense right now. And I think, to be honest as well, I think just seeing the amount of work that was needed to work one with a client, the responsibility at the time was a lot. You know, I was just this kind of like this young guy from a little small town. I want to give a sob story or whatever, because I'm this is the same guy that said he didn't feel any pressure, or didn't feel like any self-doubt, right? So I can't pull another sob story, but yeah, I think I just wasn't. I don't think I was at a stage where I really understood the responsibility I was actually undertaking, to be honest with you. And I think I had a glimpse of it, and I was like, oh shit, do I actually want this? I knew I wanted it, the life, and wanted entrepreneurship. I was like, do I want this right now? Because everything's so comfortable. There's no pressure. Like, I've got books, they're selling, I'm making money, you know, and I'm not rich, I'm not, you know, I'm not doing mad stuff. But I was like, is it for me right now? And then things happen, life happen, things get in the way, your focus kind of shifts, but it was always in the back of my mind. So yeah, there was a bit of pressure, like, yeah, I should get my next one, but it wasn't immediate. It was more so after a little while of just sitting on the thought, evaluating how things went, and then deciding, yeah, this is what I want to do. And I basically remember the days where I was like sitting down, like visualizing like the academy, and it's wild, dude. You know.
So with that visualization, that period between your first and second, did doubt start creeping in? Because yeah, you said you had life going on and you had it in the back of your head. You had your first paying client and then there was time between. Was there doubt that slipped in? Because I know a lot of us entrepreneurs have that when we're going through a rough patch. Comes in, starts pecking at you, getting louder and louder. Did you have that, or were you able to be like, you were so focused on other things that the doubt didn't even come in?
It's hard, man, because it's an interesting dynamic, because at the time I had a pretty clear long-term vision. I don't know where that really comes from. I think maybe just seeing the program that I was part of with the book publishing and seeing how well they did and seeing what they built. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. I'd love to do something like this for the podcasting space. So the doubt didn't necessarily creep in after the first client. The doubt crept in when I fully committed to like wanting to now build a consulting business for podcasters. The doubt crept in when I was 1 month in, trying to generate booked calls, interested clients who just didn't want to book in. 2 months in, when I'm barely figuring out lead generation, how do I get customers interested in what I have to sell? The doubt crept in when I was 3 months in, on my knees, praying to God, saying, dude, what the actual F? Like, why isn't this working? Like, I've been at this working 14, 15, 16-hour days, sacrificing my actual life with my friends, with my family who barely saw me, and like, I'm not getting anything from this. Doubt crept in the 4th month when I'm like celebrating, thinking I'm doing great, when I spend entire week and months just for me to book in like 3 calls in like 14 days, and for 2 of them to no show, and for me to have 1 call that didn't take me seriously. That's when doubt started creeping in, when shit actually got real, when it was like, fuck, like I want to make this work, and I'm doing every single thing in my power to make it work, and it's not working. That's when doubt creeps in. But to me, doubt never creeps in when I've not done anything, because I've not really done anything. Is when I'm doing things and it's not working, then I'm like, you know, what the hell's going on?
That's when the pressure starts feeling and everything starts mounting. So once you fully committed and then you go a few months without clients and you're getting these book calls, people aren't taking you serious or they're not showing up, which is pretty much the same thing. It's not.
Dude, people were showing up to the call, eating chicken nuggets and having their breakfast.
Yeah, that's some professional stuff right there. That's some fun. I've yet to have that, and I hope I don't. But
we didn't have it anymore, right? But that
Yeah.
shows you kind of where we were at, and that's down to our energy. That's down to who we were attracting. But that's for making the, you know, people not taking it seriously. But that's what we mean, you know.
I don't know. I've yet to have that level of kind of disrespect happen.
Dude,
But
chicken nugget.
yeah, that's harsh. And very disrespectful. FYI, if you ever go into a meeting, people, that I'm talking to the audience, don't bring food. Bring up a glass of water. That's fine. Maybe a glass of beer, wine. That's cool. But chicken nuggies? No, we'll stay away from the chicken nuggies. So after 4 months of like the self-doubt dropping in, chicken,
Hey, chicken nuggets.
I can't believe that happened. That's insane.
I don't.
What kind of
Sorry.
sauce? What kind of sauce did they have? Like,
Honestly, I don't even. She even got annoyed at me afterwards. I ended the call early. She was annoyed at me. Like, how am I the one who's in the wrong here? Anyways, regardless, carry on, man. I'm sorry.
it's fine because I love that because it allows us to look back and see where we came from. Like having those down moments, being like, can you believe? Like in 10 years, you're gonna look back and go, can you believe that chicken nugget lady? Like that's going to be something that's going to be monumental in the story, right? After the 4 months of like, hardship, when did the second client come? Like, did the second client come after like months, or was it like after 4 months, then everything started like clicking?
Dude, I wish, I absolutely wish it was that was the case. I guess like we slowly started to figure out lead generation, and for us at that time, we were really working on, generating leads through Facebook groups. So going to Facebook groups, providing value, reaching out, conversating, doing appointment setting, which just means having conversations with people and seeing if they want your service, And for me, the second client came after just having a bunch of different conversations and providing value, and then learning the skill of appointment setting and just doing the hard work, man, because I was almost like, I thought it was going to be a magic pill or something, when it's like, no, you just got to just get stuck in and basically go through pain for a prolonged period of time to figure things out. And I think that was I don't know, it was humbling, dude. It was very humbling because you realize you ain't shit, really. Like, you didn't really know much, and really learning that skill and going through those months of grueling. But then things just start to turn, get my second client. Again, I had more sales call, had more practice, still wasn't great, still was pretty terrible in hindsight. But I was grateful and very thankful that those people trusted me, and actually put their faith in me and felt like I was, just that they just trusted me, and actually just wanted to work with me and gave me the opportunity to help them. That was awesome, So I got my second client, and I helped them again get really good results. I helped them specifically monetize through selling books because, of course, I've got books. He had a podcast. He had books. I could help him out with that. And then the third one was for growth specifically, and help them grow as well. But yeah, and then things slowly over a prolonged period of time, maybe the next year, just then figuring out lead gen and then getting that a bit more consistent. And that's kind of how we slowly start to trickle in. Yeah.
And where you are today, you're comfortable. You got most of your things figured out. You launched an amazing.
So not as rich as I want to be. So not as rich as I want to be. If I'm joking, No,
I don't think we'll ever be. I don't think we'll ever be as rich as we want to be, because there's always that next mountain to climb. There's always that mountain in entrepreneurial. You hit one mountaintop, you're like, oh wait, no, there's more up there. I didn't know that mountain existed because it was covered in clouds. But with your decision to launch the podcast, like, why did you launch that podcast? Like, was there a specific reason behind it? Was there a coach saying, hey, you're in the podcasting space, why don't you have a podcast? Or was it a client saying that? What was the kind of like the anticipant of the reason behind launching the podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. You know what it is? I think we didn't launch a podcast for the longest time. So for context, we launched the podcast like maybe really like August of last year. And at that point, we would have been like maybe 2.5 years, 3 years into the business, helping podcasters grow. To be honest with you, helping clients grow their shows, we just realized how much work it is to actually run a podcast and be consistent and show up and be all in. And we were just like, well, we didn't even have the bandwidth to barely keep up with our business. How the hell are we going to have a podcast as well? That's the honest truth. And we knew that we couldn't really give the podcast a best go if we didn't give it its best go, if we didn't go all in, if we weren't fully committed. And thankfully, things just seem to, when you reflect on it, things seem to work out quite nicely. At the time, we had a bunch of clients that might mention it, but it was never a deal breaker because we just had enough case studies. Like you get people enough results, people didn't mind. It barely still gets brought up. It helps us close deals now, but it didn't necessarily prevent us from closing deals. I had a bunch of clients who just trusted us because they just saw the results we were getting. But we decided, because we just thought, well, we're in this space, we need to embody the entire role entirely. This is our lives. We've got books on podcasts, and we've got clients go to their podcasts. We work on podcasts all day now. We've got communities about podcasting. Let's become podcasters. And it was more so a thing of bandwidth, having the bandwidth, and just knowing that we could go all in on it. And it's been an absolute blast. I absolutely love it. You know, it's been so much fun speaking to my business partner, sharing a bunch of stuff. And thankfully, because we did it so late into our journey, we built authority already, and we built enough evidence to overcome any self-doubt or overcome any worry or imposter syndrome. We kind of built these things already, and we knew our strategies worked. And thankfully, we could provide so much more value compared to, I think we've got the number one podcast on there for, podcasters who are serious about growing. I genuinely believe that. And that's because we're working intimately with clients day in and day out, and we're sharing freely. Like, it's source, dude. A lot of people say it's source, like it's actual source, like really, 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 really good. And we couldn't have got to the point where the content itself is really good. We're still working, still growing, still have a lot of areas we need to improve on. Absolutely. That's a forever going process. But thankfully, because we've worked with so many clients up to this point, coached 350 plus podcasts, 400 probably at this point now, you pick up a few things,
One or two things.
You start seeing some patterns, what works, what doesn't, personality types, what really holds people back. And then you can articulate it. Now, you've explained concepts to clients so many times. So now when you are on a podcast and you talk about it, you can feel the energy. You can tell when someone's like trying to figure something out, or when someone really knows what they're talking about, how comfortable they are they relaxed, are they calm, what's that tonality like, how much conviction they have in what they're saying, or is it kind of like tiptoeing around it? And if we started a podcast way earlier, dude, it would have been false conviction. It would have been like, we're still figuring, and we still are figuring things out. We're still learning things new, right? But we're just further ahead in that journey where it's enough of a baseline now to really provide a ton of value, different other people, to have our own perspective on growing podcasts, not just regurgitating things from the internet or other gurus. Is our own perspective, our own experiences that no one else can share or replicate, that no one else can explain the way that we can, because we're living it.
I love that. I do want to get a piece of advice from you so that we can help some of the audience who are listening. Listen. What would you say is one of the first things you look at when you're helping a client to help them get to the growth that they're looking for? How do you break down their podcast? What are the steps you take in essence?
Yeah, so our signature way of growing shows is really a 4-step growth and retention system. Growth and retention system. Growth and retention system. The second piece, I emphasize that because most podcasters believe what they need is exposure, more promotional clips, higher profile guests, bigger communities to be involved with, guessing on bigger podcasts, this idea of just get more exposure on your show through promotion will help you grow the podcast. It's just not true. Like, it's just not true, and it doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because if you imagine imagine your podcast is a bucket, and the bucket has holes in the side and it's leaking. Most podcasters think that to fill up their bucket, to grow their podcast, then you just get some water and just keep pouring it in. The water meaning more exposure. But when you have a leaky bucket and you can't keep the water in, you're never going to get filled to the top. The podcast is never going to grow because you have a leaky bucket. People are coming in, your listeners are coming in, the exposure is in your podcast, but then you're not retaining them. They're not coming back for more. So most podcasts think, again, they have an exposure problem. That's all about exposure this, exposure that, promotion this, promotion that. And I get it, it makes sense, but listeners come in and then they don't stay listening. If you can't get listeners to keep coming back to your podcast is never going to grow. And if you're stuck with, let's say, slow and steady growth, meaning let's say you're stuck at 1,000 downloads per month or 200,000 downloads per month, it doesn't matter. If you're stuck at that monthly download mark, it means that people are coming in. It doesn't mean that you have the same listeners that's binging your content. That's not what it means. It means that it means, to be precise, you have an equal number of people discovering your podcast as you do the number of new or old listeners who stop listening to your podcast. And these two numbers kind of equilibrate, and that's why you stay stuck at 1,000 monthly downloads, because you're failing to keep new listeners coming back for more and old listeners coming back for more. If you could keep the same amount of downloads you have right now, but have more of your listeners listening to your content, your growth grows. So for us, we focus on retention. But what does that mean? It means building a content strategy that's targeting an individual person. It means having your podcast solve one specific problem for your listeners. It means having episode titles that are super irresistible and extremely attractive, that when someone discovers your podcast, either through a guest or through social media, they listen to an episode, they love it. They then go to your back catalog and look at your past episode, and every single one of those episodes is a solution to their problem. But more importantly, it's packaged, it's titled in a way that they can't say no to it. When you discover a podcast like that, and we've all experienced finding a podcast like this, where you're like, holy crap, this content strategy is right, is because they've done their research on you. So you, us as podcasters, need to obsess over our listeners. What's going to keep our listeners coming back for more? You ask a podcaster, why should someone listen to your show? They'll give you the generic answers rather than saying, because my show is specifically made for this person. My podcast is made for entrepreneurs who struggle, entrepreneurs of podcasts who struggle with slow and steady growth and want to turn their podcast into a fast-growing, positive ROI show. That's exactly what my podcast, the problem it solves. And I frame that through why your podcast isn't growing. What's the answer to this problem? The podcast. That's the solution. So I've said a lot there, but to kind of round things off, you don't have an exposure problem if you're trying to grow a podcast. You have a retention problem. Fix that first, and your exposure piece will explode. Really focus in on targeting one specific target audience, solving a specific problem. Once you know what that problem is, your content strategy, the topics you cover on the show, need to help them solve a specific pain point along their entire journey. If there's going from fat to fit, break that down. What all the struggles are going to go through. Starting the gym, anxiety about starting the gym, meal, dieting, speaking to family about, dieting, etc. That's your content strategy. And that's what you use to retain those listeners coming back for more. When you can do that, the podcast will grow month after month.
I love that. And I love how because a lot of us podcasters, when we first start off, we're like, we want everyone to listen to our podcast, everyone under the sun, because and it's exposure when it's supposed to be retention. So I love how you said, focusing on that one person, that one individual, that person, you make your podcast for them, solving that one problem that they have. And then you'll see the growth. That's what we do with this podcast. Every single episode is dedicated to the individual where my guest was when they first started. Because there's a billion people that are exactly like you, Anthony, that they've been saying since they were young, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to have my own business. I'm going to be free. And they don't know how. And now they hear you and they're like, oh, maybe I can write a book. A book will help. Or they may check out some of those book gurus out there, or they may even reach out to you, Anthony, and be like, you know what, maybe I want a podcast. And then they can sit down, talk with you, and they can get that help. So this is what I love about your idea, like focusing on that one person, that one individual that's looking for help. This podcast is the same thing. It's to help people see there's thousands of different ways to make money online and have the freedom that you've always dreamed of. And that's why I think that's the best way about doing it. It's find that one individual you want to help, and you'll find everybody else comes to it, because everybody has a piece of that identity inside of them. Could be, hey, I'm a 25-year-old. Boom, you connected with all the 25-year-olds, even though you're looking for 25-year-old males who live in Connecticut, You hit all those 25-year-olds, someone's going to look at that. They may not live in Connecticut, but they're 25, and that's what helps when you have that core idea of who your audience is.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to know, because we're coming to the end, which I hate, because, well, one, podcasters just never shut up. It's one of our problems. We love hearing ourselves talk, and I love this episode with you, Anthony. But what do you do to invest in yourself, to make yourself better?
I think one of the best investments I've made so far to myself, and it's a continuous process, is I guess I'll flip this on you, Phil. Let's say, for example, you found a piece of alien technology in your room, right? And it looks bizarre. It's like the craziest piece of technology you've ever seen in your life. And right next to it is a manual, right? This thing, has no buttons, you don't know what the color is. You're like, what the hell? I've never seen this before. And but next to it says manual, right? What will you do? What's the first step you're going to do?
Probably going to read the manual because I'm scared I'm going to blow myself up. To be honest, if I see alien tech, I'm like, I'm going to blow up. Where's the manual? So yeah, I would probably read the manual. I read books and that.
Yeah. And why is that?
Because I'd rather learn from someone else before I create the errors and hurt myself. Like, obviously, if I'm gonna play with that tech, I'm going to end up making a mistake somehow. I'm going to probably hurt myself. However, the errors that I can avoid would be in that book. It's going to at least tell me the basics of how to use it. And then when I start doing something stupid, which I I will eventually do, because that's who I am. I like to push the buttons on things that I shouldn't. But yeah, I would just start reading the manual just to learn how to first use it and then go off and play. Once I figure out how to use it, I'm off playing with it and seeing what it can do.
I love it. Currently on planet Earth, what is the most powerful thing that we have as humans, or that we know of?
Well, it's nukes. Those are those powerful things. But if we're not going down that route, it would be knowledge, just sharing knowledge. Like the internet is one of the most powerful tools. It's a university for free. I would say
where do nukes and knowledge come from? Where do they start?
Learning, just from learning, from knowledge, by sharing knowledge.
What allows you to learn?
Reading,
okay,
school.
And when you're reading, what processes the words on the actual page?
The written word. I'm not sure I'm following where we're going here. The mind.
The mind.
The brain. Yeah. Okay.
The brain. That's the nukes come from the brain.
Yeah.
Your
ideas
come from the brain. Ideas come from the brain. Knowledge comes from the brain. Reading allows us to read. The brain allows us to read. Your laptop, the Mac, comes from the brain. The house comes from the brain. Our entire existence and reality comes from the brain. It's essentially alien to us. We didn't get to pick our brain. We don't even know what a bloody brain does. We barely know anything about it. It's alien technology, you could say, right? But no human has a manual on how they live their lives, on the principles that they abide by, on the values that they have. But it's the most powerful technology on planet Earth. Our brain, ourselves, our minds. How chaotic is our mind? How chaotic is our lives? Yet no one has a manual for it. So something that I invested in 2 years ago that really shaped a lot of how I behave and who I'm becoming, and I'm trying to always strive to become, is I created what we call self-alchemy. And it's literally called, like, basically Anthony Nwaneri, human manual and human guide. What are my principles? What are my philosophies? What does my future look like? What's my story been like so far? Who am I trying to become? What does my risk life looks like? What are my affirmations that I say to myself? What is my vision board? Like, to the minute details of, like, what are my bad habits? I used to bite my nails since last week, bro. Since last week, man. And I wrote down recently in the manual, Anthony Nwaneri does not bite his nails. He takes his time and does nail properly. Simple things. But that little small thing now, that's in my Anthony Nwaneri manual, allows me to understand how to better myself. And I look at that as much as I possibly can through the week. It's not every single day, but as much as I possibly can. And it just reminds me of who I'm trying to become, what I'm trying to do, and I refine it and refine it and refine it. And then I have a manual of how I live my life, of who I am, of how I show up to the world, of who I'm becoming, of who I've been, of my story. I have a manual, and I invest in myself by being intentional of who I'm becoming. Nothing in this life is static. Every single thing in the universe is forever becoming. Your life, your parents, your love, your relationship, everything is in continuation. Time, everything's moving forward. But who are you becoming? No one ever asked that question. And that's a question that I'm really always conscious of. Who am I becoming? Where's my life going? I want to look on this manual. It allows me to dictate and push things in the right way. And I'll tell you what, in this manual, dude, I put down a goal that I had 2 years ago. about this consulting business. And last month, there's a screenshot I've got on my manual that had the exact number. And I then broke down the digits. And guess what? We hit it last month.
Shit.
And it was in my manual. And that was 2 years ago and I forgot about it, you know? So that's how I invest in myself, dude. I try to be very intentional of who I'm becoming. As much as I possibly can. I'm still not perfect, but that's honestly been huge for me, is really obsessing over who I'm becoming. Because this thing right here is more powerful than we ever know.
I love that. That's one of the most intriguing answers I've ever received to that question. And I love it because you're right. We don't have a manual for this and we can create our own manual. Like my parents always used to tell me, you didn't come with a manual when you were born, right? You were born without a manual. And I love how you just reintegrated that into my life, saying, I have a manual. I'm writing my manual for who I am and who I'm becoming. And I think that is an insanely powerful tool to have, because you can shape your life in astronomical different ways with that. That is insane. I'm going to have to start doing that. My God. Thank you, Anthony. That is like, I'm thinking about it, as you were talking about it, I'm like, wow, that is insanely smart, because it allows you, one, it keeps you accountable to yourself. It allows you to keep an eye on your goal without being so wishy-washy all over the place, and helps you cement your priorities in life without them being so easily swayed by others, because you have your manual, like, this is who I am, this is who I'm becoming. That person who I'm becoming won't be doing this. They do this instead. They focus on, creating better leads, creating better podcasts, creating better experiences for my clients, and for, being the kind, caring person that I am. I love that. And I think that's a brilliant idea for others to do as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that I would say, like, this is something that recently I've added to my manual, because I'm always looking at it and I'm always revising it, and I'm removing things and I'm adding things and fine-tuning it. One thing that's really helped me recently was this thing, which was like, work isn't work. And this is one of my principles that I've wrote down in my manual. Work isn't work. Work is the purest expression of my truest self. Now think about if you look at that every single day and how you show up to work. I still mess up. Don't get me wrong, I still mess up. But having that in the back of my mind, it changes how I work. Like, if you truly believe that and you see it and understand how deep that statement truly goes, work isn't work. Work is literally the truest expression of who you truly are. How you show up to your clients, how you take care of your clients, the detail you pay attention to, that it literally is you. It is an expression of you. I mean, you show up like that and see it like that, you realize, oh my God, these holes that I'm seeing in my business, they're holes in my life. The manual, this is whole crap. So what do I need to fix up? Yeah.
Heavy. Nearing the end of the
You're
episode.
going to go this direction, did you?
I did not. No, I did not think I would have a mini philosophical experience, a revelation on a podcast, and I love it. We are hitting the time limit, so I'm going to hit you with my last question, Anthony. But I think you probably already answered it. But what advice would you give your 10-year-old self? Start that manual at 10. There you go. That's the advice, you can. But would that be your advice? Would you suggest to your self to start that?
Not my 10-year-old self. I think that's probably way too young for me to know what the fuck I want, to be honest with you. But I would say to my 10-year-old self, I'll give him a hug, and then I'll say, hey, dude, this is going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You've got an amazing family that loves you, and you're going to be proud of the person you're becoming. So just keep doing you and don't stop. That's what I'd do.
I love that. Very good advice. Anthony, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to tell the audience where they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can get in contact with you, because obviously you're doing great things with what you're doing over in the podcast world. So please let them know where they can find you, and the floor is yours.
I love it. So look, if you don't think I'm a total arsehole at this point, you're still here. You like this interview, and I appreciate you, Phil. Thank you so much for having me on. You want to learn a little bit more about myself, or you want to just connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Anthony Nwaneri. He's going to be pretty hard to miss. And if you're a podcaster, an entrepreneur who wants to turn a slow growth show into a rapidly growing podcast, check out our podcast while your podcast isn't growing. I'd recommend episode number 2, 7 reasons why most podcasters fail that no one is telling you. That's for that's a little pitch there for you.
I love it. I love it. And I love your strategy is right there in the title, calling out, telling people exactly what they need to do. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so glad we were able to connect and finally have this episode after like 2 years of being friends. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it, man.
To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below. They're going to have all the links to Anthony's, I'm losing my eye here, excuse me, to Anthony's products, his links to his Facebook group, his LinkedIn, and of course to his podcast. And to Anthony and to you all, thank you so much for listening. And remember always to invest in yourself.
Thanks for tuning in. Now it's time to take the next step. When you're ready to dive deeper into how to launch, grow, and monetize your podcast, Phil's got something special for you. Join him for a free webinar where he'll reveal the 3 secrets that have helped countless entrepreneurs succeed in podcasting. Click the link in the show notes to save your spot, and let's turn your podcasting dreams into reality.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/kidsandfamily. Just go to Indeed.com/kidsandfamily right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.